As races at Sochi go, the 2020 Russian Grand Prix had a surprising amount of liveliness bubbling underneath, largely a legacy of Lewis Hamilton's pair of penalties for producing a practice start further down the pit exit than permitted. There was also plenty of close racing and passing moves, avoiding the usual procession that breaks out around the former Winter Olympic venue thanks to a mix in strategies. It wasn't a classic by any stretch, but it also wasn't a race that courted the fury of social media onlookers either. With 2 weeks between the previous race at Mugello and the event at Sochi, the teams had more time to finalise new parts for the trip to Russia, and also to further their investigations into some of the developments at a more well-known circuit. Unlike the last race where the teams had to use the practice sessions to build up a picture of an unfamiliar venue, the data for Sochi already exists within the constructors' databases, and so can conduct more accurate comparison work throughout. With the billiard table smooth surface having developed a few more imperfections over the years with use, the general layout remains the same. Each team now has a little under 2 weeks available to digest the data from Sochi, before the field heads west to the Nürburgring for the first time since 2013. This prompted something of an arms race in the midfield, with the teams battling away behind Mercedes and Red Bull in close proximity. Let's begin with Ferrari. Returning to its normal red livery, having shrugged off the burgundy robes run at Mugello, Ferrari also arrived in Sochi with a smattering of new updates. At the front, the SF1000 sported new turning vanes mounted to the nose, with a reprofiled cape to redirect airflow around the wheels, with the ends clipped slightly to interact with the new vanes. Ferrari has gone all out with those new turning vanes, adding a number of intricate fins to the mix in order to strengthen the outward airflow around the tyres. This should go some way to controlling the amount of turbulence that the front wheels generate, hopefully relieving the team of its inherent drag problem. Given that other teams have tended not to opt for such a distinct level of complexity in this area, it'll be interesting to see if anyone picks up Ferrari's idea and moves it on. The team also added new rear wing end plates, reprofiling the overhanging strakes in a manner similar to a design Mercedes developed earlier in the season. Ferrari had 7 strakes previously, but the new end plates now have 3 longer chord strakes, all attached to the ridge on the lower side. The top edge of the end plate also has the step's trailing edge. All of these additions change the way that the air rolls off the back of the rear wing, and it appears to be part of Ferrari's efforts to reduce the overall drag produced by the 2020 car. One of the biggest bugbears of this year's car is its lack of straight line performance, as we've talked about in other videos. And although a large portion of that is down to the powertrain, the attempts to add downforce over the off-season dialed in a large amount of drag. Ferrari had looked more competitive in practice compared to its poorer showings in the previous triple header, and although qualifying was stymied by Sebastian Vettel's qualifying crash, Charles Leclerc's race performance seemed to be a step in the right direction on his route to 6th place. Having experimented with the Mercedes-style nose in Mugello, McLaren continued to assess the new design throughout the Sochi weekend, and decided to pick its new nose and run it throughout the rest of the weekend on Lando Norris's car. The MCL35 looked handy in qualifying and ingratiated itself with the other midfield rivals Racing Point and Renault, although Carlos Sainz Jr. was faster with the older design. The reason for that? Team principal Andreas Seidel says that the new nose doesn't represent too much of a change in performance, but it falls in context among a greater wave of updates planned for the following races. McLaren had already created a thinner nose at the start of the year, strengthening the crash structure within to ensure that it could shrink its width and improve the airflow towards the underside of the car. Mercedes has pursued that path for a number of seasons, and at the start of the year it became a design trend that other teams sought to pursue, including Renault and Red Bull. Although McLaren and the Red Bull's designs have persisted with the mounting pylons at the side of the nose, retaining the thumb-tip crash structure, McLaren has now elected to round off the nose and position the front wing mounting points to the underside to reduce the blockage of airflow passing around the front end. There were a few amendments to the front wing in order to improve the interaction with the new nose. Here there's a reduced level of curvature on the second element's inboard section, which the third element follows, responding to the change in the airflow's direction and form instigated by the new cape. Meanwhile, Renault's impressive rate of progress continues to accelerate, and the team made a few tweaks to its front end to dial in a little more downforce. The team, like Ferrari, made a few amendments to the cape underneath the nose, and had also experimented with an added gurney flap to the upper element of the front wing. The Renault front wing is unique compared to the other wings on the grid, with 2 straightened upper elements of equal chord length. The central element is larger than those top 2, presumably generating most of the downforce before using the upper elements to keep the airflow attached over a greater camber. Although the changes are small, and Renault elected to remove the gurney flaps to trim off for qualifying in the race, Daniel Ricciardo praised his new setup direction after qualifying, saying that the team had found the comfortable in the uncomfortable. After Lance Stroll's shunt at Mugello at Arrabbiata 2, Racing Point didn't have the time to build another 2 aero packages between the second Italian race and the flight to Russia. So the team had to make do with just one, leaving Sergio Perez on the old parts as Stroll once more collected the new upgrade, owing to his superior driver's championship position. Those updates included a small tweak to the front and rear wing end plates, a new engine cover with a tighter fit around the side pod radiators, and a few changes to the bargeboard package too. For Sochi, both cars also had use of a new rear suspension package, which seemed to play very nicely with the team's bid to secure third place in the Constructors' Championship. Technical director Andy Green said that he was happy with the new suspension package, although put Stroll's muted performance in practice down to overdriving. Although Stroll dusted himself down and made one of his trademark dynamite starts, making up ground past the AlphaTauris and Charles Leclerc, a touch from Leclerc at turn 4 speared the Canadian into a spin and, subsequently, the wall. Thankfully, most of the bodywork appeared to be unscathed, and should ensure that the drivers get a run out with the new kit at the following Nürburgring race. However, should a similar fate befall Stroll next time out, Racing Point might be best served attempting to call on the services of an exorcist rather than an aerodynamicist. With 7 races left on the calendar and with 2021's cars operating in largely the same layout, expect the arms race among the midfielders to continue to escalate. The Nürburgring is next, and there, the closely fought midfield battle will continue to rage on.